Nazanin Boniadi. She is an activist in human rights, and she is with us by video conference. Here I have to say a few words. Unfortunately, when we recognize the people and we honor them, Madame Boniadi was not here. So now I am pleased to welcome you, and we are proud to announce to you that you were recognized by our committee as one of the greatest human rights activities. You are an activist who writes a new page in the history of a human being and the human rights. Thanks for the job you are doing. May God be with you in every steps you are taking in order to defend the human rights. Ms. Boniadi, welcome to our community, and I give you the floor for 5 minutes for your introduction. Please go ahead.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Thank you very much for the kind recognition. Members of the committee, thank you for this opportunity to testify. Before I speak in my own voice, I want to begin with the words of someone who cannot be here today. This message was sent to me recently from a dissident in Iran. It's basically martial law here. Anyone who makes even the smallest move gets arrested. They check phones. They strip people to see if there are pellet wounds. And if they find any, they detain them. They threaten me too. If you make the slightest move, we'll raid your home and take you somewhere no trace of you will remain. The silence is suffocating me. My phone is tapped. They know where we live. In every alley, there's a memorial. Young people, beautiful like flowers, buried underground. I survived only because the bullets didn't find me. We, 90 million people, are prisoners and hostages. Without you, we are truly alone. Honestly, I kind of wish I could become one of the immortalized martyrs too. This is the psychological and physical reality of daily life for millions of Iranians. Human rights lawyers and experts are now warning that what is unfolding in Iran is not ordinary repression. It's a systemic assault on a civilian population that meets the legal threshold of crimes against humanity. To understand why Iranians continue to risk everything, it helps to understand how the Islamic Republic governs. Political legitimacy has historically rested on a social contract. The state provides security and sustenance in exchange for the people's consent. As the writer Karim Sajjadpour recently described, what exists in Iran is not a social contract. It's a predatory lease imposed in 1979 and long since expired. Iranians still live inside the fever dream of an intolerant cleric, Ayatollah Khomeini, who believed that economics was for donkeys. Their private lives are regulated, who they love, what they watch, what they wear. Women are treated as second-class citizens, beaten, imprisoned, and killed over a piece of cloth. Iranians endure rolling blackouts in a country rich in oil and gas. Their savings have been wiped out as inflation surges and the national currency loses over 99% of its value since the revolution. Their rivers have dried up, their lakes are vanishing, their nation's beloved capital, Tehran, is sinking as groundwater is pumped away. The state slogan are death to America, death to Israel, never long live Iran. Patriotism, the revolution's founder declared, was paganism. While citizens are told to endure austerity, a parallel state, dominated by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, operates as a tax-exempt mafia, controlling ports, telecoms, and construction, while elites smuggle luxury goods through private terminals. When citizens protest these conditions, they are branded enemies of God. They are executed without due process under charges like corruption on earth. The Islamic Republic maintains the highest per capita execution rate in the world. This is not governance. It's an extraction, coercion, and terror. And now that system has entered its most violent phase. Credible reporting and testimonies from inside Iran indicate that since the nationwide uprising began in late December 2025, tens of thousands may have been killed. Human rights organizations stress that communication blackouts make all available figures a severe undercount. By scale, organization, and intent, this violence meets the legal threshold for the crime of extermination under the Rome Statute. Under the responsibility to protect, recognized in international law, this threshold triggers duty. Thousands of detained protesters now face the imminent threat of execution. Senior judicial authorities have warned that continuous protests may be prosecuted as waging war on God, a charge historically used to justify mass executions. The Iranian people have demonstrated agency, cohesion, and extraordinary courage. They have fulfilled their role, and the responsibility to protect now shifts outwards. For Canada, 6 actions follow directly from these obligations. First, protect civilians by degrading the regime's capacity to commit atrocities. Canada's leadership in designating the IRGC as a terrorist organization has already paved the way for others. That leadership must now be matched by coordinated multilateral enforcement, targeting its leadership, the IRGC's leadership, assets, and infrastructure. Second, impose sustained economic measures, freeze regime assets globally, and dismantle the clandestine tanker networks that finance this repression.
Yeah, but
Third,
please, if you could round it up, because we exceed by almost half a minute.
I'm so sorry. So I just want to close, actually. I can get to the other points. I want to close with a message because I brought you the message of somebody from Iran. So here's a final message from one of the bravest dissidents, Tumaj Salehi, who wanted me to share the following. For years, we have taken to the streets to claim our rights, for freedom and equality, for democracy, to close a wound that has been the source of bleeding for decades. We look to one another and rely on one another. But how long can we stand barehanded against bullets? Is our family of peace seekers going to leave us to face this alone? If this movement fails, it's not because Iranians lacked courage. It's because the world once again failed to meet them at history's edge. Thank you.
Thank you. It's touching. Thank you, Ms. Boniadi. And now we'll start with the first round of
تشکر میکنم خانم بنیادی از صحبتاتون. بسیار مفتخر هستیم از اینکه
allow you to finish saying some of the comments you might have. So if there were some remarks that you wish to get across, please feel free to share them now.
I very much appreciate that. Thank you very much. The third point I just wanted to make in the calls to action to guarantee the right to information and internet blackouts, of course, are stopping Iranians from communicating with each other, but also the outside world. And this isn't just a technical issue, it's a protection issue. The fourth point was to end impunity. Regime officials implicated in repression should be expelled from Canada, and legal proceedings initiated under universal jurisdiction should be initiated. And the fifth point is to demand the immediate and unconditional release of all political prisoners. And the sixth and final point, move from severed relationships to formal non-recognition of the Islamic Republic. A regime that systematically wages war on its population has forfeited legitimacy. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that. And I really appreciate you having a chance to complete your thought, because those are essential recommendations that we will now carry forward. I mean, the occupation of this clerical military dictatorship of the Iranian people has been suppressing this ancient light, now penetrating through with the courage of their people. My question to you is this. The Cyrus cylinder sits in a the cracked case sits in a display at the United Nations in New York. Yet the United Nations itself has been one of the most, unfortunately, passive places when it comes time to actually fulfill the promise of Cyrus that every delegate has to pass through when they enter its halls. What is your message to Antonio Guterres, the United Nations, and its so-called human rights institutions, as so many thousands of Iranians are massacred by such a brutal regime?
That's a very poignant point that you made, because you're right, multilateralism has failed. Not only the Iranian people, I would argue the Venezuelan people and many others. Because when we take, as I did 3 years ago and other dissidents did recently before the UN Security Council, when we make these points and carry the voices of the people of Iran to the UN, not the repressive regime that is already platformed at the UN. We are met, of course, with roadblocks because China and countries like China and Russia will always veto any meaningful action to curtail and stop the influence of the regime and to empower the Iranian people. So we have to find, as lawmakers across the world, and the free world essentially has to come together and find a better model to support peace, freedom, democracy, and human rights. And we are failing at this time.
Thank you. As you point out, the government in Beijing has been responsible for a $60 billion multi-year pact on prosperity and on security with the Iranian regime. And the government in the Kremlin has obviously a massive drone supply and munitions supply chain along with the Iranian regime. They both have an interest to preserve the supreme leader and its apparatus. When you think about how the IRGC, the Basiji, and others have been repressing the Iranian people, what is your view on how exactly they can be best supported against such violent regional dictators, but also a regime that's now increasingly a colonial project of these two neighbors?
I mean, we've called for, as the very brave dissident Too Much Salehi said, we are barehanded, they are unarmed, and they are being targeted by war bullets. For peace advocates, as I am a peace advocate. What that means is you have to find a way to create peace in a situation where the state is waging war on its people. I'm not a politician, but all I know is that the responsibility to protect is something that exists under international law. And how that's going to be executed will require a very thoughtful multilateral approach. And it is going to require targeted action against the IRGC and the machinery of repression that is targeting innocent people.
Thank you. We have a couple of minutes left, and in that, capitals across Europe and including the United Kingdom in London are so slowly reacting to the realities of Iranians being massacred on their own streets. It has taken over a decade for them to even realize that the regime has been playing a shell game with them in the name of reform for all so long, all while pursuing regional terrorism and nuclear ambitions. What could you say to shake the capitals out of their hypnotic commitment to their past ideology, to act now, act today, and list the IRGC?
I mean, you have been leaders in Canada on this front, and we're very happy to see the EU has recently joined you, and the UK is now an outlier. So what we're saying to them is, are you going to catch up with the free world? Because at the moment, you've got the US, Canada, Australia, and Europe who have listed the IRGC. And the UK really does need to catch up and wake up to the reality that the Iranian people are the future and not this regime.
Thank you very much. If there's any comments you have left in the last 30 seconds or so, please feel free to share them now.
Just thank you to you all and for being leaders and for continuing to stand with the Iranian people. I would just urge you to please take note of the recommendations, the 6 recommendations, and I'd be happy to work with you on that front. Thank you.
Apparently, I still have another minute. Let me use it to ask you, the Iranian regime uses propaganda through proxy organizations in the Western world. What evidence do we see of that?
There are multiple, there's many videos online that show actually that they manipulate things like on Wikipedia, for example, and Wikicommons. So they will make sure that the primary videos and photos and sourcing points to Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader's propaganda and his website, and obviously regime officials are being platformed on in Western media. They're allowed to publish their op-eds while the internet blackout was happening. So what I would urge Western governments and media and institutions to do is ensure that those voices of the regime officials are not allowed to spew their propaganda and instead allow the people of Iran's voices to prevail.
Thank you very much. I'm looking now to the chair, for whom I'm convinced I've crossed the timeline by quite a bit.
Thank you.
Thank you. I invite Madame Vandenberg to take the floor for 3 minutes and a half. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I'll be sharing my time how pleased we are that you're here. You should know that the recognition that was given to you by this committee is done unanimously by all parties. And so it is really the Parliament of Canada that is recognizing your work. And through you, the work of all of those incredibly brave people who are on the streets of Tehran and all over Iran right now fighting for their freedom. And I'd just like to ask you, thank you, by the way, for those 6 recommendations that you provided us. I think that is very, very useful. You have mentioned, and you said in your remarks, the importance of thoughtful multilateralism. Why is it important that what the international community does in support of the Iranian people, why is it important that it be done through multilateral efforts and and particularly if it does come to supporting, we hope, free and fair elections in Iran, why is it important that that be done through international support and not one or another country or power?
Thank you very much. I do want to take a second to dedicate this recognition to Tumaj Salehi and others. I carry Tumaj's voice today, and I want to make sure that he and others inside Iran who are languishing in jail, Fatima Sepehri, Narges Mohammadi, and countless, I can't name them all, so thank you. And to answer your question, the regime in Iran it has used this rhetoric of their slogan, their essential founding principles are death to America, death to Israel. They have killed people, executed people by falsely accusing them of being aligned with the US and Israel. All the more reason to make sure that this is not just something that is painted by the regime as supported by those 2 governments. It should be support. What should happen is that every freedom-loving country in the world and their governments should be supporting the efforts of a free, democratic Iran. And that's where multilateralism comes in, is to safeguard the idea that freedom is something that we all support, not just a couple of governments.
And you also talk about the internet blackout. The regime is going to great lengths to stop people from communicating the atrocities that are occurring. And there are ways, and I know that in other venues you've talked about things like satellite-to-cell technology or things that could be done to help get the communications going again. I wonder if you could elaborate on what it is that maybe Canada or other countries can do in that regard.
Thank you so much. Yes, I think efforts are being made to see if direct-to-cell might work, direct-to-cell satellite technology might work, and other ways. But essentially, what we need to do is down the line, if this type of thing happens again, we have to be ahead of it. It's not enough to be reacting. We have to be proactive. And so I really urge tech companies to work with governments and find a way to be proactive about this and not let it happen again.
Thank you, Anita. Mr. Hassasi, you have the floor for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Allow me to thank Ms. Boniadi. You have been such an incredible resource to us all. You're essentially on speed dial for us, so thank you for all of your efforts. I don't have much time, but just to put it in context for all the members of this committee and anyone else who is following, as you said, this is a government that is waging war on its own people. The numbers that we're seeing are truly, truly unprecedented. Do you know of any other instance in modern times where a government, a criminal government, has killed as many as we saw killed on the various streets across Iran in the last 40, 50 years? I just want to sensitize everyone to how horrid this actually is.
I'm sorry, I got cut off.
Yes,
I'm sorry.
I was just wondering if in the modern era, in the last 40, 50 years, if you can think of any other country which has experienced something on the same scale as the criminal activity of the Iranian regime.
I'm sorry, Mr. Assassi, I lost your voice for a second, but no, I can't imagine. Of course, Tiananmen Square, we saw with approximately 10,000 slaughtered, and that was horrific. The numbers have surpassed that by every indication that we're getting. At least 6,000 have been confirmed, and 17,000 something have been are under review. Some investigative reporters and medical doctors inside Iran are saying 33,000. But no, I would put this among, if not the greatest, essentially protest massacre since World War II.
Thank you. Do I have more time? Looking at your recommendation, they are all incredibly concrete. They're very effective. Which one do you think we will have the best chance of making sure that not only Canada, the U.S., and our allies would all adhere to? Because I do truly believe it's important that countries act together and make sure that we are not acting in isolation. So which one do you think we should be pushing the most?
It's hard to say because they all are sort of an equal footing. But I would say that since you're a leader on, isolating and holding the IRGC to account, that would be something that I would encourage you to talk to your British counterparts with and ensure that they do. But another one that I think not enough people are talking about is non-recognition. You have also led the way in 2012 of closing I believe it was 2012 where you closed the Iranian embassy in Canada. And I think the next logical step is non-recognition, meaning the Islamic Republic does not legitimately represent the Iranian people. Now, if we can get global consensus on that, then that would be fantastic.
Thank you, Mr. Assassi. Now I invite Mr. Boniadi to take prendre la parole pour 7 minutes, s'il vous plaît.
You can take the floor, Mr. Boniadi. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Ms. Boniadi, is the interpretation working for you? Okay, great. Thank you. We're very happy to have you with us here today, Ms. Boniadi. I'd like to go along the same lines as Mr. Assassi about Iran. You have witnessed the absurd actions of the regime in Iran. How is the current repression different from that experienced in Iran previously, such as the mass executions in 1988, for example?
Thank you for the question. Essentially, what happened in 1988 was the targeting of prisoners. So these are people who have already been captured. These are not protesters, right? So what we're seeing today is people protesting in the streets. And when I say prisoners, those were also dissidents. So it's not fair that they were imprisoned. They were imprisoned for political reasons. So that was also abhorrent. And today what we've seen is people taking to the streets, voicing discontent about this regime and being met with war bullets. The difference, of course, is today what we're seeing is unprecedented. It's the number one call that galvanizes and united people on the streets is death to Khamenei, and they don't want this regime anymore. Freedom, freedom, freedom. And that is really what's echoing is everyone is united. There isn't a faction that is not united around these slogans. So that's really the difference today. And of course, it leaves the regime with no way of dealing with it, but, their usual repressive tactic, which is to crack down on protesters. What is unprecedented, of course, is the number of protesters that have been killed. And what we're not really looking at is the tens of thousands, and some are saying hundreds of thousands who have been imprisoned. And I'm hearing from inside Iran that prison cells are the prisons are so crowded now that people are cramped in spaces and not eating well, not being taken care of, and facing imminent execution. And that's another wave that can possibly happen in the very near future.
Merci pour ça. Il y a plusieurs experts internationaux qui...
Thank you for that. A number of international experts feel that the organization and intention of this repression represents a crime against humanity, and you mentioned that. Do you have any concrete examples that we could help us correct that and bring it into the public space later?
Human rights experts and lawyers have already pointed to the fact that this is classified under the Rome Statute as an extermination. When this number of people are targeted by the state, that's what it is. It's an extermination. And even if it's the 6,000, just over 6,000 names of people who have been confirmed killed, that is already a crime against humanity. But we're looking at far more than that, and far greater and more serious crime against humanity than that. And so with all the evidence, the video evidence that we're seeing, the senior officials in the health ministry who have told us that the numbers are likely to be quite high, definitely in the tens of thousands. There is no other way to address this than as a crime against humanity, as crimes against humanity, and that requires every government to come together and find a way forward to stop this from escalating even more.
À quel point est là?
At what point are there foreign powers working hand in hand with the Mullah regime and who are party to the crimes? I'm thinking here of China, which has made many energy agreements with Iran. Do you think that they are supporting the regime? And should they also be denounced by the various countries supporting the Iranian people?
I think there's a very clear alignment with certain authoritarian regimes that protect each other economically and policy-wise. And what we've failed to do in the free world is be as united against that despotism. If we are not able to align ourselves in a way that basically increases the cost of repression, increases the cost of collaboration with those who repress, then we are failing. And what are we protecting? We're not protecting democracy. We're not protecting freedom or peace. And people make the mistake of thinking that, you know, when you see a crime happening in front of you, do you not go to the perpetrator of that crime and arrest them? Somebody inside Iran said to me, when I'm witnessing a crime, I call the police. Who are we supposed to call when our state is committing the crime? Surely we have to have a multilateral approach in international law that allows for a state to be arrested, so to speak. And we're not doing that. And that's for you. That's for people far smarter than me and more experienced than me to figure out how that should be done. But the mechanisms need to be in place, and we need to realize them with practical measures.
Quel message?
What message is sent to the Iranian people when countries like Canada, who recognize the reality of the crimes, but don't undertake concrete diplomatic measures? What message does it send to the Iranian people? Because we're all here around the table, and we all support the Iranian people and have for a long time. But despite all of this, there is a certain bit of hesitancy in countries like Canada, and their desire does not translate into concrete measures. We know that our Prime Minister has done trade deals with China. How can that be interpreted at times like this?
Quick answer, please. Time is over.
The quick answer is that we understand that every country has their own interests, best interests at heart, and that is understandable. I think what needs to happen is for countries to understand that as long as this regime stands, that is not in Canada's interest, that is not in the world's interest. And so finding a way to curtail the repression, not only domestically, but it would translate essentially, if you hold this regime to account, to a more peaceful region and a more stable world. So it is in your interest, it is in everybody's interest to side with the Iranian people.
Thank you. Myself and on behalf of this subcommittee, we would like to thank you for the time being here, the good answer illustrating this, all the members. And once again, congratulations for the good recognition you got it unanimously from this subcommittee. We highly, highly, highly respect the good job you are doing, your good efforts, and we wish you the best. Thank you.